Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Shanth Enjeti Art. My name is Shanth Enjeti, and if you don't know how to pronounce that, you are not alone. So I am working right now on NOSFERO, my first crowdfunded comic that I've done. I've done comics before, and I have crowdfunded 2 art books, but I've been wanting to do a comic book story now for a while, and I am really excited about this one. So if you're not following me on Instagram, the link is in the description. You can take a look at all the work that's gone into it. I've got quite a bit of work done on this book already. And again, it's not my first rodeo, so I'm really excited. I know my printer very well, and I've had a great experience with them, and done a lot of work laying this book out already. And so right now what I'm doing is giving you guys a look behind the scenes at the creation of the artwork. And this is a project that's going to be launching on October 1st. If you go to the description here, you'll see a link for the early sign-up. People who sign up early for the book are going to be getting a head sketch with their purchase, a 4x6 original ink head sketch. And this is something I do as a thank you for everybody who signs up early and helps make the campaigns a success. I always try to put in a little something extra. And on my last campaign, for everybody who backed it before the funding period, I made sure to do an original head sketch for them and throw it in with their work. So this is, again, another thing that I like to do because I appreciate the people who are supporting me and supporting my work. So this comic book is kind of an action, fantasy, sort of horror book. And, you know, when it comes to the horror aspect of it, it's not that extreme. I would say it's somewhere around 1989 Batman. I mean, it's nothing too terrifying or anything like that, but it is very imaginative, very visually appealing, and has a lot of the things that I've come to love in comic books. One of my big influences is an artist by the name of Frank Frazetta that I'm sure that some of you guys know. So it's got that kind of epic fantasy feel, and that's what makes it fun. And like I said, if you're curious to see more artwork on this book, please do check out my Instagram. And again, link in the description. I've got, quite a few years of work on there. And you can also see what went into my first 2 art books, which are going to be available as a part of this campaign. So one of the things I'm going to do is make books 1 and 2 available at a certain tier, so that people who've missed out on those and want to buy them will be able to get a hold of those as well. So if you like horror, fantasy, artwork, and the occasional beautiful woman thrown in there, then you're going to love it. So let's see here. Okay. So I'm working on this Cthulhu Mythos inspired / Nosferatu inspired villain right now, and you can get a look at what the character looks like. It's a very kind of creepy, surreal villain, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to have him sitting on as a throne, and the thing I was thinking of is I wanted something kind of like a chaise lounge or something like that, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized it would be so much more interesting and much more like the kind of stuff I like to draw if he was sitting on a, just, to paraphrase Joseph Campbell, a prodigious serpent, and that was sort of acting as his throne. And I think that snakes and serpents and, as symbols of evil are just go really well with vampire stories. And one of the things that's interesting to me about this story that I don't think I've mentioned on any previous streams, but it's a huge part of this for me, is as big of a fan as I am of books like Blade and, and certainly the film Blade. I kind of, there's sort of this track that they took when they were doing, modern vampire myths, where people will throw holy water or, try to use crosses on a vampire, and then of course there's that sort of, postmodernist kind of, mocking, where the vampire's like, please, crosses don't work on me, they don't do anything, and all that kind of thing. And to me, I get why that was the case, and I get the appeal of kind of trying to make the story of vampires real. But I've been watching ever since my friend Michael over at The Choice Voice introduced me to Hammer horror films. I've been watching a lot of the Peter Cushing stuff that was done, in particularly my new favorite Hammer horror film, Brides of Dracula. And I think there's a tremendous loss that has come with us taking sort of the cross and the holy water as weapons to be used against evil and used against vampires. So that's something that I'm going to be using in this story. It's going to be a little bit more old school and a little bit more classic. The vampire cannot stand, the cross and holy water and all of that stuff. Those are going to be reintroduced as legitimate ways to battle vampires in this story, because I think it's very poetic, it's very beautiful, and it just brings something to it that we haven't done in a while. And I think it's a great throwback as a piece of storytelling. And for me personally, I just think that we lost something in our stories when we got rid of that. Because and we gained some stuff too, to be honest. I mean, I'm always standing on the shoulders of giants, and, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Blade. I'm a huge fan of those movies. But, for me, the original vampire killer on the silver screen will always be, as much as I love the original Dracula, Van Helsing, Peter Cushing's Van Helsing in Bride of Dracula. If you haven't seen it, such a cool character. It really did take my friend Michael at The Choice Voice to inspire me to want to go check it out. And so do check out Brides of Dracula if you have not. It's awesome. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is I was watching, I was looking at, oh gosh, I'm going to blank on his name because it's just too many consonants. But I was looking on Instagram, Patrick Thomas. I think I've got the last name right, but it always trips me up because it's a 3-name thing. But anyway, I was looking at his Instagram feed, and he was showing some Sleepy Hollow work. And I'm always curious if that guy and I are the same age, because we have a lot of the same touchstones. Things like Battle Beasts and, Thundercats and He-Man and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I was looking at his post, and he was posting that he's illustrating Sleepy Hollow. And I did a Sleepy Hollow illustration in book 2 of my art book series. And the thing that got me about that when I was, thinking about it is just, I wrote on his post, I'm already in Halloween mode. And I cannot overstate how much I love Halloween. It's such a great, holiday, and I'm starting to get to that phase. I'm a little concerned that I'm celebrating it earlier and earlier and earlier every year. I want to put the Halloween decorations up sooner. So it's my birthday on September 2nd, and I feel like that I need the new birthday tradition that I need to start really seeing if I can push my wife into, is that once we hit my birthday, that we can start decorating for Halloween. So I want Halloween to be September into October. That's my hope, but we'll see. We'll see what she has to say about that. She's, bless her heart, she's one of the most supportive people in the world. So I'm almost afraid to ask her to go along with any of my insanity, because I know that she will. This is going to be fun, me turning this paper, trying to keep as much modesty on that figure as I can. But, if you want to see the rest of that figure, you can always go over to my Instagram and subscribe. You'll see, or follow, or whatever the heck it is. And And please, if you haven't, like and subscribe here. Every single bit counts. I want to make sure I say to all of my YouTube subscribers, and particularly, as well, obviously the people who have come in recently, we are over 500, and that is not lost on me. I really appreciate your support and checking this stuff out. I hope you'll all sign up for the email list that's in the description. Back this book, and I will be thrilled to be doing head sketches for all of you guys who back the book and support what I'm doing here, because it is, I'm really proud of this book and where it's going. I've got almost half of it done, and I haven't even launched yet. So that's how much faith I have in this project, and that's how much faith I have in the book. And I should say, and I definitely have faith in the project, but I want to say this: it's how much passion I have for the project too. Because this project only happens with you guys, and this project only becomes everything it could possibly be with your support. And that's, to me, that's what I love about crowdfunding, and that's what's made all of my crowdfunding experiences so overwhelmingly positive. Is, it's very humbling. It was very humbling when my first art book funded. I was completely overwhelmed. I wasn't a part of any kind of movement or anything. It was just me and my followers on Instagram, and people who have known me and supported me in my life. And to see everybody come out and make that art book a reality was huge. My brother Nick wrote the intro to it. He's a terrific guy. He's my brother from another mother, and just a really good guy, artist, inspiration, and really helped me to grow as an artist, and certainly to grow as a person. So it was cool to have him, do the intro for my first art book, and then my other brother, Cameron Scott Davis, who some of you guys might know Cameron's work. He's done some designs for Sideshow Collectibles. He did the DC female sort of villains from the Batman world as a slumber party for Sideshow Collectibles. And he's a former student of mine. I've known him for almost 20... Oh my gosh, how is that possible? Hang on a second. Yeah, almost 20... Is that possible? My God. I've known him for almost 20 years, I think. And so, yeah, and he's actually art directed me on some VR concept artwork that I did. So, very cool guy. And he was the introduction. He wrote the introduction for the second art book, so that's pretty cool. So it's good to have all these guys, in your corner when you're working. And I have to tell you, the reason why I started this YouTube channel, there were a couple of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons was I was being inspired by, and I was inspired to do my first two art books by watching Ethan Van Sciver's Comic Artist Pro Secrets channel. And I was watching him, and I was watching what was going on in the indie scene, and I wanted to see where I was with my work and where I wanted to go, and my audience was, of course, had just sort of really exploded in terms of the amount of people who were following me on Instagram. And I made this decision: I'm going to do an art book, and it went well, and do a second one. And so I love comics. Comics have been something that I've done my entire life, and it's why I, went to study art, and why I've pursued my what I have with my artwork. It's all comic book based. And so for me, when I started doing this stuff, it was, to reconnect with it. I mean, I finally had the skill set I wanted. I had the story I wanted. And I was like, I'm just going to go for it. And so I've been doing, tons of work. And I said, and I was watching a stream, I think it was with Ethan and John, and they were talking, and I think John said something about, introverts, and how we're all introverts, and, you need to, something, I mean, it was kind of very, very much like John, and I think in a lot of the same terms. He was like, you're an introvert, big deal, we're all introverts. You don't just get to, hide out. If you want to be successful at crowdfunding and putting your work out there, particularly in comics, you need to go where the audience is. You need to go where the audience is, and you need to make YouTube videos. And I've been teaching, at that point, I've been teaching for, 18 years or so. And so I was nervous when I started that, and I had to speak in front of a crowd. So I have a lot of experience speaking in front of crowds, but I'm not a natural extrovert. And so for me, this felt almost a little bit like a more extreme version of that. But I said, you know what, though? He's right. He's right. How bad do you want it? It's an amazing thing. It's a dream. It's a dream to get to do the thing you love and get supported by such an amazing and passionate audience. And if that's not enough to motivate you, I knew that was going to happen. And if that's not enough to motivate you to get out of your comfort zone, then I don't know what is. And I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. I need to get on there and start doing YouTube videos. So I let my Instagram followers know I was going to be over on YouTube, and and slowly just started making videos and trying to build my audience. And I am thrilled to be, where I am right now with 500 people who want to check out and see what I'm doing. And thank you guys again for subscribing, and hit the like button and ring the bell for notifications and all that fine stuff that is so important to do for us to kind of get our stuff out there and kind of get through the noise. Because at the end of the day, the result is going to be an art book, and an art book that would not exist without your support. I mean, this story, when I'm writing a comic book story, I've put a ton of thought into this, and a ton of thought into to the kind of fun I want people to have when they get this book in the mail and when they're checking it out. That is everything. And I remember going to the comic book shop. I remember seeing Batman 1989. I remember seeing like a lot of you guys. I mean, it was when it was comic book day, I was at the comic shop. I had a great comic shop, and Wade, the guy who ran the comic book shop, would always put aside comics for me. And so when Tim Vigil had something out, he would put it aside for me. When Todd McFarlane had something out, because I was a massive Todd McFarlane fan, he would put it out for me. He would make sure, because these are back in the days before the internet, he would make sure he would put aside when he would get in something like my first big comic I collected, which was Mike Zeck's Punisher Limited Series. I was waiting on that first issue, and I told him, I want the first issue. God, I was so OCD about it all, but I want the first issue, and I want to make sure that it's got the face in the corner. I don't want the UPC symbol. I want the little Spider-Man head that was in the corner on Punisher Limited Series #1. And even though I don't have those comics anymore, because like a lot of people, or I should say, I'm one of those people who I love them for the art, and I love them in the best format, and I appreciate having the original comics. I remember it, but I always wanted to have them in a better format because they would get damaged so easily when you read them. And so I've got all of the giant omnibus. I've got the Mike Zeck, the Mike Zeck artist edition, so I can look at the originals, and then the giant omnibus that's got all the Mike Zeck Punisher stuff in it, and then all the airbrush covers that were done for that, which were awesome. And I had all those posters when I was a kid. And then I've got the Spawn Vault editions. Excuse me. Goodness, gotta drink some water. The Spawn Vault editions, which I love. That was a dream come true. To be able to flip through Todd McFarlane's original artwork on Spawn is just incredible. But I'm like that with all the books that I love. And if you look at my desk right now, which you can't because I'm not going to zoom out right now, but I've got the giant Peter David Hulk omnibus that has the Todd McFarlane cover. They did one edition of it that had this poster that he did as the inside the dust jacket, and then the dust jacket cover is Hulk 345, I think it is. The cover to Hulk 345, where he's pushing the words apart. And I just love this stuff. I live for this stuff. And so that's been kind of what I've been doing lately, and I want to bring all of that stuff, to bear when I do the comic book work. And so you can see some of the kind of gnarly, details and aesthetics that come from my love of that stuff. And so here's an example of the brushwork aspect of what I do. Again. And this book will be beautiful, just like the first two art books. It's going to be something that is a joy for you to take out and read, and it really transports you. There's a great history of printed comics in the American industry, and I should say, sorry, not printed comics, painted comics in the American industry, and there's been some really cool stuff done. And what I want to do is bring a little bit more of, a little bit more Frazetta and a little bit more of the kind of European illustration quality, where it still feels like a comic book. I don't want it to feel like just a painting. And I know that sounds crazy, but comics have their own language. And I know a lot of you guys who are huge fans like myself and connoisseurs of comics, that there is a comic book thing that is not an illustration thing, not a painting thing, not a movie thing. It's unique to the art form. And I respect and appreciate that, and that is what I'm passionate about. So I'm not afraid to throw in an outline, to throw in that comic book language to make it fun. That's what I loved about, those early, comic books that I read, and particularly what I loved about some of the lettering and things like Spawn, and then some of the lettering in Wally Wood's work, and, the kind of crazy type you would see in Wally Wood's EC comic stuff. So when I did one of my first comic books, I self-published a comic book called Spring Ball back in the day. And when I did that, I did all the lettering by hand, which I won't be doing with this. But I'll be bringing some really cool stuff to it because I know digital now. And one of the best things I ever heard was somebody said, I love the lettering in this book. It reminds me of old school EC comics. And that's still very much where my heart is. So, but I've worked on a bunch of comics, and it's been fun, but I don't think I was, as an artist, I don't think I had matured to the point where I'm at right now, where I can really do stuff of this caliber. And that's what you want to bring to the game right now, because there's so much great work being done. I don't want to be, an artist who doesn't add to this great period we're in right now, where the indie comic scene is starting to bring comics out of the sort of dark ages it's been in for a while. When I was in college, I was so passionate about comics. I mean to say, like, every single week going to the comic book shop. And at a certain point, I just found that the stuff that I wanted to see, the creators I wanted to read, were just not putting work out, and there was less and less of it that I was interested in. And so I was buying a lot of back issues. I was buying a lot of stuff that I loved when I went to comic shops. That was the stuff I was looking for. And, right now I kind of feel as though the lifeblood of comics and the lifeblood of this industry is going to be, or let's not say industry right now, let's say art form. The lifeblood of this art form, this wonderful, magnificent, silly, idiosyncratic art form, is going to come from artists, and it's going to come from the indie scene, and I think that's pretty much where it's always come from. So, I'm a kid who grew up reading the first publishing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles graphic novels and comics like Grips, and so I was primed for Image Comics when it came around, because I was following those guys on the mainstream titles, but I certainly was not adverse to the independent scene at all. I thought independent comics were cool. They had just been a little... There was a period of really pulp fun in indie comics that kind of went away. And I'm also talking about publishers like Pacific Comics and Dave Stevens' Rocketeer, which I fell in love with in college. And there's a lot of There's a lot of Dave Stevens in my soul, and love that guy's stuff. And I wanted to see more of that stuff. I loved Bernie Wrightson's work. I love everybody from the studio. I think is fantastic, the stuff that they did. But yeah, I mean, creepy, eerie, all that kind of stuff. Beautiful illustrations, beautiful illustrative comics, but also so raw, so fun, so pulpy. Same thing goes with, oh gosh, sorry, hang on, I gotta finish this line here, then I can think. The same thing with Richard Corbin. I'm a big Richard Corbin fan. Bought his Angoulême catalog for his exhibition there. I bought it because I wanted to have was it California Girl or California Girls painting that I saw on the wall. I said I need to have a reproduction of that. That is really cool. And you know, just I love his idiosyncratic, amazingly fun stories and storytelling. It's just, they're so crazy. I have his Werewolf Collection, which influenced the werewolf story, painted werewolf story I did in Art Book 2. And again, don't worry if you missed any of the first 2 art books, because they are going to be available, granted in limited numbers, on the crowdfunder for this. So if you missed Art Book 1 and 2, you will be able to get those when you back this project on Indiegogo. I'll make a certain amount of those available. There we go. So we're starting to get this together here, get the snake feel in there. Because again, it's, you know, when I'm doing the visuals for this, I really want to make sure that I'm creating that epic, mysterious kind of feel to it. And so it seemed to me that he should be sitting on a throne that was this gigantic serpent. And it's kind of, I mean, it's a cheat. It's a mix between a Diamondback, Rattler, and what was the other one? Shoot. I think it's a Timber rattlesnake, but I'm not positive. And then on top of that, of course, I'm mixing it with a python, and trying to kind of create something that's got that mass of a constrictor, but then also has the kind of raw intimidation of a Diamondback. When I went to Texas as a kid, I got a belt buckle that you can still get. These things, they're everywhere, and it was a Diamondback rattlesnake, half of a head on the belt buckle. And I had that thing for ages. I don't know what happened with it, but it was something I would wear for fun because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world when I saw it. Just thought it had a really great aesthetic. Maybe it was the Cobra Kai in me, who knows. So funny. And I just would draw that snake like crazy. A lot of things that I would get as a kid, I would get because I wanted to draw them. So I loved sharks. I loved drawing sharks, and that's why it was so cool. My first job, pro job in comics, which Andy Smith, another CG'er, did the cover for. If you haven't subscribed to Andy Smith's channel, do check it out. But he did the cover for it, and it was a comic book called Threshers, and it was all sharks. So it was kind of neat that my first pro job was about basically anthropomorphic sharks. So I had a really good time with that. And but yeah, I loved sharks. I had a rubber shark toy. I loved Jaws. Saw Jaws 3D in the theaters when I was, oh my gosh, I must have been so young when I saw that. Gosh, what would I have been? I don't know when that movie came out. Ugh. It would have had to have been before 83, I think. So I couldn't have been more than 7 years old. So I saw that. I was in the theater. That was back when parents would drop you off in a theater. And so I was wearing 3D glasses and watching Jaws 3 in 3D. It was a different time. And yeah, I was just tiny little kid checking that out. But it was awesome. I loved sharks and I loved 3D. I thought that was pretty cool. I recently got Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D. And the cool thing about that was that that comes with the red-green 3D glasses, and you can actually watch it in 3D. So that's a really fun Blu-ray to have. And I love Blu-rays, collect Blu-rays, because I like to own movies. I love all the bonus features, you know, all that stuff. So we're going to put in a little bit of a warm wash here, just to kind of make the snake pop a little bit more. There we go. And I'll put in, what I do when I work is it's an additive subtractive process. I don't have to just like put in, you know, work from light to dark and then stop. I'll always go in and put highlights in with like a white gel pen, or I'll put them in with, you know, white paint, because you know, I want it to have that sort of volume to it and that detail. You can see where I've done some of this, you know, in the face of this creature right here, in the face of this villain, is going to have that you know, that quality to it, that kind of richness. And you can see it in this character too as well. Like, you know, when you look at this character, you can see I've done various washes to kind of build it up, and it'll look you know, this camera's not picking it up quite as well as, you know, the book is going to pick it up and the printing quality is going to do, but you get the idea, and you'll see what it looks like when it's done. It's going to be something to see. Really, I mean, I've been happy with how every book has come out. The printers I work with, who are really cool, really good people, they've helped me on these projects. You know, they send me a proof, and if it's too dark or if something's not working, I go back in and we get it sorted out. And you know, it's so important to me that the book be quality. And so if you've ever gotten one of my art books before, and if you haven't yet, they're square bound. They're 8.5 by 11, so the same size as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was when it came out, the first issue. And glossy stock cover. So it's a nice book you can flip through and you can see the artwork. If I did it smaller, I just don't think you'd be able to really, it wouldn't be as immersive. So it's a little bit more like, you know, an indie comic, or like a European comic book, like bande dessinée. And I'm really looking forward to, you know, putting in the patterning on this snake too as well. It's going to have a python-like pattern on it. And, you know, that to me is the fun thing, is kind of transporting the audience when you're doing this work. It's great, you know, to take people out of their day-to-day. I don't want to see comics about people who are as boring as me. That just doesn't appeal to me at all. I like aspirational comics, and I like aspirational film and cinema, and I like aspirational characters. I don't need to see, you know, some, you know, banal story that, you know, is over obsessed with being, you know, about irony and deconstruction. That's just not, it's not where my heart lives. I've got way too much faith and romance in it in order to really get into that stuff, because it's kind of if it's done well, it almost transcends that kind of attitude, and I just don't find that it's done well very often. I definitely want to be transported when I look at work. Starting to get this sorted. And a lot of this stuff is you know, they're kind of temporary marks for how to put it together. I'll go in and I'll kind of refine some of the patterning on this boa constrictor, or sorry, python pattern that's got the head of a rattlesnake. Because again, it's about fantasy. I need this snake to have some pretty serious vampire fangs and, you know, other qualities that are going to give it, you know, the sense that this isn't something that you've seen everywhere and that you can see different places. And it also works with the kind of reintroduction of the, you know, Judeo-Christian aspects of vampire, you know, culture, which is, you know, something that you see with, you know, the cross being a powerful weapon, holy water being a powerful weapon. You know, the Hammer horror movies did that so incredibly well, and that's something I want to make sure that, because it's been taken so far out of this mythology right now, I just think it's time for it to come back in. I'm not going to outblade Blade, and you know, it's like, it's also, there's, you know, having seen, you know, Bram Stoker's Dracula in the movie theaters by Francis Ford Coppola, and a lot of the other, you know, really cool vampire stuff that came out in the 90s, and then being, of course, reintroduced or introduced for the first time to Hammer horror films by my brother Michael over at the Choice Voice. That stuff is that stuff has a character to it and a charm to it that and also kind of spiritual beauty to it that I want to bring back. The idea of nobility and the nobility of having faith is something that's kind of a really beautiful element in the vampire mythos. And I think it was inevitable that during kind of the postmodernist, deconstructionist period of cinema that you were going to, in storytelling, you were going to see that kind of laughed at and, you know, mocked and removed from it. But I think it takes something very powerful and very cool from those stories. And if you don't know what I mean when I say that, check out Brides of Dracula by Hammer Studios with Peter Cushing starring in it. You'll see what I mean. It's a completely different vampire experience than the one we've been seeing in probably the last 4 or 5 decades. You know, it's really, and I didn't realize how much that had been taken out of the vampire mythology and vampire mythos until, you know, at the behest of my friend Michael, I started to, and the inspiration, I started checking out Hammer horror. And it's one of the coolest things about, to me anyway, it's one of the coolest things about YouTube, is that you can find a lot of people that are passionate about things that you may not have heard of. And I know for me, that's its chief value, is finding people with different passions, and then sort of you know, falling in love with new things, new ideas, new stories, and new kinds of fantasy. And sometimes I watch things. There's a channel on YouTube called Retro Blasting, and it's run by Melinda and Michael French. And the thing I love about it is that I love, you know, looking at old toys and retro toys and stuff. I think that's great, but I'm not a retro toy collector. But Michael is so passionate and so informative about it that he makes the subject matter really compelling to me, and I'm excited to watch his videos when they come out. And I think sharing passion for things is always, you know, of great value. There we go. Getting some pattern on there just for fun. A little bit of temp pattern to help us with value and help us understand, you know, what the gist of this area is going to be. And then I can kind of go in and I can make sure I got that on frame. And let's see here. How can I rotate this so the lighting is better for you guys? There we go. That's a little bit better. And that will allow us to kind of get the angle. It's not the angle I need because I really kind of need to be moving my hand in the other direction, but I want to make sure I can show you guys what I'm up to when I'm working. That's why a lot of people don't work when they're on stream. It makes sense, besides the fact that a lot of people just don't find it entertaining, and it's really hard to work while you're talking, is that there's things you have to do that work better for the camera that aren't naturally how you would make a mark, which is to say, like what I'm doing right now, this is the direction that I ink in because I'm right-handed, and so it kind of will always flow a lot easier in that direction. There we go. Here we go. We're starting to see how this thing's coming together now. Take a look here. All right. So let's zoom back out here. We'll take a look and see where we are. So this is me roughing in the snake figure right here that's going to be the throne, the chair of the main villain that we've got in our story. Our main NOSFERO Thulu, I think we'll call it. NOSFERO Thulu. That could be kind of interesting as a name. I'll have to write that down. But so yeah, that's the idea for this character, and that's where this story is going. Thank you everybody for tuning in today for this video, and please like and subscribe if you have not yet. And I will be doing more of these streams. The link to my Instagram is in the description. The link to my Patreon is in the description. The link to the early email sign up for this Indiegogo project, which is NOSFERO, the Crypt Walker, which is launching on October 1st. That is in the description as well. Sign up for that email list and you will be able to get a free 4x6 head sketch when you back this project at any tier. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's always a pleasure, and I will see you guys with another stream soon. Like and subscribe, all of that great stuff. Take care, everybody.
King Kong ain't got nothing!